Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wakelet podcast. This episode is part of our mini book club series, and it's all about Atomic Habits today by James Clear, which is one of my favourite books at the moment. So thank you for tuning in. I'm Elle, and today I am joined by Tish. So Tish, please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hey everyone, I'm Tisha Poncio, Digital Learning Specialist at Wakelet, and I'm excited to talk about habits with Elle today.
I'm excited to talk about habits with you, Tish. Thank you so much, and thank you for making the time just to come and hang out with me. It's one of my favourite things to do, and I know you've been so busy over in Texas, but I just had to grab you for a chat because we've both been reading this book, we've both been enjoying it. I know we had a very brief chat about it a couple of weeks ago, and then again on Twitter the other day when you tweeted about it, but yeah, it's really stuck with me, so I'm really excited to hear your thoughts in detail, and maybe some people at home are listening or are reading this, and they can drop their thoughts in the comments as well. But yeah, let's jump straight in. So my first question for you, Tish, is how did you find this book and why did you decide to start reading it?
Okay, so this is really crazy. I believe, Elle, that like the universe sends you messages, okay? And like if you see something over and over and over, probably you need to investigate why you're seeing it over and over and over.
Completely agree.
You first told me about Atomic Habits. I happened to see you reading it on Instagram, and I follow a lot of people who read a lot. And when I saw your book, I was like, I've seen this book. Where did I see the book? Well, interestingly enough, my kids, I have a junior and I have a sixth grader, they started a new school this year. And one of the things that they started studying was this book in their homeroom class. Yeah. And I realized, oh, this is the same book that my kids were reading and learning about. Now Elle's reading it. This means that I need to read it. So I immediately, after I saw your Instagram, ordered it on Amazon so I could have it the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. What a world we live in to be able to do that. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited. I'm thankful to you and to my kids' school, honestly. And once I started diving into it, now I know why everybody's reading it.
Yes, yeah, that's so true. It seems like everybody is reading it. I feel like there's these kind of things that do just come and everyone jumps on the trend, and then it kind of maybe fades off a little bit, but again, it kind of comes back. So you're definitely right. It does seem to be everywhere at the moment.
Right.
But yeah, it's really interesting that your kids are reading it at school. And is that something that's being read to them, or are they all just reading the same book at the same time?
So they meet every Monday for homeroom, and their teachers, I believe, read this book all together as sort of a team building activity. And now they're taking all the strategies in the book and giving them slide deck notes and talking about it every Monday so that the students will start implementing all those strategies. I will tell you, once I really started getting into it, I thought if I was still teaching in a classroom, as you know, I had my students read books, leadership books in our class, really to have them dive deeper into leadership, but also be able to reflect on what they were reading. I would implement this book into my classroom the same way that my kids' school has. So I don't think that is a normal idea. I don't know that everybody would do that. Of course, I always say, you know your kids, you know your students, you know your school better. If you read this book and you think it's something that you want to translate over into your classroom curriculum, or maybe talk about every Friday, put it on a Wakelet, right? Put a question on a Wakelet and have them go add their answers or their flip grids. I mean, there's so many ways to do this, but yeah, I would recommend doing that with students.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I wish I had picked this book up sooner. It's one of them things where you're reading it and you think, this really resonates with me, or I could have really used that like 2 years ago and whatever else. So it is something that I also think is timeless. There's so many kind of lessons for life in the book as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I mean, the kind of like core purpose, I guess, of the book is to try and show readers that how easy it can be, in theory, to build habits. And what do you think is kind of the main reason behind habits being seen as like quite difficult to build? Because we can all pick up kind of maybe bad habits and they seem really easy, but it's always the good ones that take a little bit longer to really stick with us.
I think, Elle, because we get in these like we get in these this mindset where we're comfortable, right? And sometimes we're on autopilot. I've studied gratitude for a really long time. I've practiced gratitude for a really long time. And it takes a lot more work to unlearn something, right? Because you've done it for so long, or you haven't done it for so long.
So hard. It can be difficult, definitely. And even to, like you said before, break bad habits or unlearn something can be just as difficult, which it sounds so silly when you read the book and you realize, like, in theory it seems so easy and I can just do this and just this small change. But yeah, when you really start getting into it, it can at first feel difficult. I think there was a fact or a kind of statistic that says it takes like 3 months to build a habit or something, or 90 days to build a habit, which seems like a really long time, but it's really not if you think we're all nearly at Christmas now.
That's true. It does seem like a long time. See, I don't know where I read this, so I do not have a source for this, but I remember years ago somebody saying that a habit took 21 days or 30 days to really change. But I'm honestly leaning towards what you said. I think the 3 months is really where it will solidify and become part of your everyday.
Yeah.
So that's intriguing. Those two thoughts. I wonder if our listeners have heard of any other timeframes that habits would be established.
True.
I know it's definitely longer than a week.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I wish it was just a week. I think maybe it obviously depends on who you are as a person, but perhaps the kind of better habits that are, like, just as an example, maybe going to the gym or working out, maybe that does take longer to build. Whereas a sort of bad habit could be, I don't know, eating ice cream every day. I mean, sounds great to me, but that seems like a lot more achievable. So that habit might form a lot quicker. So it could just depend on what it is and what your kind of surroundings are potentially.
I think you're right. I also think it is really individual to the person's belief. If I believe that I have enough time every day to go work out, then I'm going to work out. But if I believe that I don't have enough time, I think it really comes back to that. What are we speaking? What is the self-talk that we have in our heads? If I walk around saying to myself, I don't have enough time, or if I wake up saying, I'm so tired, it's sort of like I'm putting that in motion. So if I change what I'm speaking to myself, I feel like that also will boost the habit success rate.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's such a great way of thinking about it. I really like that. And again, I think it's sort of touched on in the book with sort of becoming the habit that you want to enforce. So rather than saying, I want to work out more, maybe changing that to, like, I am an athlete, and allowing your identity to take that on. And you speak a lot about manifestation as well, and manifesting, I am an athlete, or I am healthy, whatever it is. So I think its core, it all ties together.
You're right. And it's so intriguing that we're even those of you watching, Elle and I last minute planned this little book talk. So she didn't even know that I had a whole conversation on Saturday with my son's best friend.
Wow.
And they are 11 and 12. Okay. So 6th grade. And my son was playing football. So I was having a conversation with his friend on the sidelines. And I said, I'm a world traveler. And I said, are you a world traveler? And he said, I'm not a world traveler. And so I started talking to him about these I am statements. And what was so intriguing to me is his resistance to an I am statement. He did not want to say that he was a world traveler because he had never traveled the world before. And it was so intriguing. I was having this whole talk with him. But again, I think he represents so many people in the world who are resistant to these I am statements. Again, it goes back to, what do we believe about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So very powerful. And I did highlight that in my book, Elle, about the I am statements. I think that I have these little, actually, I have a little Bunsey book that has page markers and notes, and I copied you from your Instagram. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do what Elle did. So I have these little markers that say OMG. I know you're not surprised. that's what it says. It's hard to change your habits if you never change the underlying beliefs that led to your past behavior. So in order to change our beliefs, we have to change and unlearn what we learned before. And I've used this. This says on page 35. So I haven't finished the book. Elle knows I haven't finished the book, but I'm there. And that's part of my habit is reading every night from this book, even if it's just one page. Okay. So this says examples of self-talk. I'm terrible with directions, or I'm not a morning person. We're setting that into motion. So I have to say to myself, and this is what I'm working on. I know this is one of your questions. I am a morning person, Elle.
Yes. Yeah, me too. I am a morning person. I love waking up.
But it's so weird to say that to yourself. And again, it goes back to that core belief, right? Like since I was probably 8, I've told myself I'm not a morning person. And that is just the self-talk I had for all of these years. So now it's difficult. I also wrote on page 36, I really like this. And it says, wow. So it really hit me. I'm just going to read this paragraph. On any given day, you may struggle with your habits because you're too busy, too tired, too overwhelmed, or 100 other reasons. But over the long run, the real reason you fail to stick with habits is that your self-image gets in the way, right? This is what we're saying.
Yep.
This is why you can't get too attached to one version of your identity.
Yep.
Progress requires unlearning.
Incredible.
Could that statement not go for everything?
Literally everything. Yeah.
Everything happening in the world. Okay, I'm going to read it again. Progress requires unlearning. And in order to unlearn something, Elle, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of intentionality.
Yep. Yeah, completely.
And it takes consistency. And sometimes I even battle with myself. So like you want to eat ice cream every day. And it sounds really good. And it is really easy. But then I think, okay, what's the consequence of that? Well,
yes, exactly.
A lot of our viewers probably went through this during the pandemic where they were like, oh, I'll have ice cream every day. I'm home. I'm not going to work. And then they're like, oh, now I've gained 10 pounds. Right? Suddenly. Anyway, so that's my big aha moment is page 36. I think that thought goes with everything. Progress requires unlearning. I would really even talk about that in the education realm. Yeah. There's a lot of things in the education system that we need to unlearn. And many are unwilling to do that.
Of course.
So if there's an unwillingness, we're not going to change our habits.
Yeah, it's that kind of tendency to just maybe not want to, or maybe it's like being scared of not knowing how to. And it's that fear that is stopping people from making those changes.
Or do you think it's fear of control?
Perhaps. That's another one.
They don't want to be not in control. I say that a lot with teachers, and I kind of jokingly say, teachers love to be in control of things. And part of my unlearning as an educator was to let go of the control, and that was not easy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, when you're in the flow of it and you know kind of what to expect when you are in control or you have a certain way of doing things, it is that maybe unknown of it all changing. Right. Completely. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think, like you said, it's such a key message that you can apply to everything. And that, again, is what I really liked about the book. I think the kind of writing of it was really accessible. It seemed like you could apply it to so many different situations. It isn't kind of a niche. I sat there imagining different paragraphs in that applying to so many different situations. And I think that is why it is such a brilliant book, and why it's on my cover, it says sold over 3 million copies. But I know you can get more updated versions that say over 5 million copies. So it is one of the most popular books out there, I think.
But and you know what's incredible is he did not start off to be a writer. He wanted to write, but when you go and read his story, it really is, I feel like it's everybody's story. There are you are so incredible and incredibly talented, Elle, with graphic design.
Thank you.
You do, seriously, but you do it every day, right? You're constantly improving that art and that technique and that mindset. And I think that goes into, like you said, anything we do, whether it's teaching, presenting, parenting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm a hands-off parent, I'm not going to get great results out of my kids. It's going to take a lot of energy. It's going to take a lot of intentionality, a lot of loss of sleep, maybe some more goal setting as a parent.
It is that whole thing of, and I think it's touched on in the book, of just like showing up and being consistent and trying all the time. I think there was one story in there that I found really interesting, and it was one of the readers of the book who, or before it was a book, it was a newsletter. So one of the readers contacted James Clear, who wrote the book, and said, I really want to go to the gym. So all I did was start just turning up to the gym, and I wouldn't do anything when I was there. I would just go to where the gym was. I'd stay for 5 minutes and I'd leave again. And it's that whole thing of just getting into the habit, literally, of just showing up and just being consistent. And then once you're confident and it becomes a habit and you just happen to find yourself there one evening or one morning, then you can go in for a workout and it doesn't feel like a chore.
And you know what's interesting, Elle? I love this. That story's great. I just showed up. That's one of the reasons that I really started presenting, is because people started asking me to present and I just started saying yes. Yeah. I can trace that all the way back to 18 years old. And they would say, do you want this job? And I say, sure. I have no idea what I'm doing, but yes. And I think that's it. Showing up is half the battle. Showing up, probably 75% of that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I wanted to ask as well, given, of course, that it's all about building habits, is there any habits that you've tried to build before reading this book that maybe haven't been successful or not successful in the way that you hoped they'd be originally?
Elle, I could talk to you about habits all day. You know this. Elle and I talk about habits all the time. Okay, so I have gone through a lot of life. Anybody who knows me, anybody who knows my story, like, I'm not getting any younger. And so I've kind of experienced a lot of things. But one of the things, since I started reading the book, so I was doing habits before, but now one of the things I'm doing, and it's sort of like this fitness, showing up at the gym. I was not super consistent with working out. The pandemic did kind of throw me off with what I was doing, how I was approaching life, what I was eating. And then I kind of like in the summer went, whoa, like I've got to readjust. I have to change my sails here. So after I started reading the book, the part about showing up or even feedback loops, I have a little note on page 45 on feedback loops. And the I am statement. So I am thankful for my weight loss. I am thankful for completing this workout program, right? But it isn't easy. It's a struggle every single day. So my habit that I'm working through is to show up and work out at least once a day for 30 minutes. Sometimes now, after a couple of weeks of doing this, I've even worked out twice in a day.
That's incredible. That's brilliant.
I used to do that all the time. I used to run half marathons. I mean, I've done all the workouts.
You're a powerhouse.
Well, I kind of let myself go in the pandemic. Now, I will tell you one of the things. So there are two habits that I did before the book, but as I was reading the book, I was like, this is genius. So, there's a book, and I cannot remember. I'll have to look this up for the show notes. It's called Make Your Bed.
Yes, and brilliant book.
A couple of years ago, I would say 4 to 5 years ago, I decided I'm going to make my bed every day. And I don't care how late I am, I'm going to make my bed every day. And so I just started doing it, and I just started showing up. Interestingly enough, the thought behind making your bed every day is that if you do that, before you ever set out to work, you've accomplished one task already, right? And it makes you feel better. So then you're going to accomplish another one. Yeah. And I did not grow up making my bed. I hated it because I was not a morning person, but I am now. I am a morning person. And I make my bed every day. I was doing that, but I didn't always do that.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it helps. I do love the research behind making your bed because I do think there is something there. Once I started doing that, I started doing other things. I started grad school. Like I finished grad school. Like I did so many things after the bed making.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then recently I started doing affirmations. And, it's kind of like you said. I thought, maybe this affirmation will work. Maybe it won't. But I'm going to show up to it and I'm going to say it. And so I started putting sticky notes. I know people have done this for years. And I knew, isn't that the thing with habits? Like, people are doing them and they work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but you just aren't doing it yet.
You just don't do it. You just show that reluctancy to doing it for some reason.
Yeah. And again, I think it's about control. Like, no, nobody's going to make me do this. I'm going to do this on my own time.
Yeah.
So I have these sticky notes in like my entire house. I have them in my car. I have them in my bathroom, and they say affirmations. And I just started saying it. And the thing is, once you start saying something over and over, then you start believing it. Once you start believing it, then it starts showing up. And that's kind of how it works. So today, Elle, I'm telling you, I am just thankful for being healthy, and I'm thankful for being able to work out 2 times a day.
Incredible. You are inspirational, honestly. I love that. I love that it's kind of one of the key kind of underlying themes throughout the book is that small changes have a big impact.
Yes.
So just making that small change of believing in yourself or having an affirmation or having it on a sticky note, that small change will compound over time. And I think one of the kind of key facts or statistics that was in the book, and something I've heard many times before, is that improving 1% each day makes you 37 times better in a year. And that's just incredible. I don't know how the math works, but I 100% believe it. But have you got any...
I know the chart you're talking about. I was trying to find it in my book because it shows just if you're on an airplane, for example, and you just shift 1 degree, right? You end up in a completely different place. And that was powerful to me because I thought, I can shift 1 degree. Okay. Okay. I'm going to do this workout plan.
It seems so manageable as well. So easy to do,
Yes. So that's what I'm doing. And who knows, maybe I'll run another half marathon in a year, Elle.
Of course, perhaps. I'd love to see it. Have you got any real life experiences or examples of when a small change has led to a big impact for you? I mean, I know you spoke briefly then about making your bed, and I completely agree. Is there any other examples that you can call on?
I would say the making the bed is probably the biggest one, because I was very resistant to making my bed. I know that sounds weird, but I just was. I would say the other really small change was, and again, it's about motivation, right? If I'm motivated to do something for someone else, sometimes I'm more willing to do that than I am for myself. I'm learning and working through showing up for myself just like I would someone else. But in that regard, I ran a half marathon for Jace, and I decided one day, I just woke up. I don't know. This is Tisha Poncio style. You just wake up one day and I'm like, this is what I'm doing. So I woke up one day and
a morning person.
Exactly. I woke up one day and told my family, we're having a family meeting. And they were like, oh dear. Okay. And I sat them down and I said, I'm going to run a marathon. And they were like, you don't even run. I used to run, but I was not running, had not ran in a long time. But I decided to set that goal. I think that was in September, October of 2015, I believe. And so I thought, okay, well, in order to run a half marathon, I have to just run a mile, right? So that's a tiny bit. So I started off with less than a mile. That's the truth. Because I hadn't ran in years, probably 10 or 12 years. I mean, it had been a long time since my daughter was born in 2005. And so that mile was hard. And I hated every second of it. I did. That's what I'll tell you. Sorry, I have a hair in my mouth. But that mile was hard and I hated it. But I showed up the next day and I went, okay, today the mile's going to be easier. And then I kept doing that. And eventually then I signed myself up, Elle, for a 5K. Because I was like, well, I did all these miles.
Yeah.
Surely I can do 3.
Yep. Yeah.
I couldn't do 3. I'm looking to all the cameras. I couldn't do 3. I ran a 5K in December. So I set the goal in October, ran the 5K in December.
That's fantastic.
Jason had to come get me out of the car. I'm not even making this up. I was calling him from the car going, I'm going to need you to come out here. And he goes, what's wrong? I think he thought I injured myself. And I said, no, like, I can't move. That was the dumbest thing I've ever done. I need you to help me go soak in cold water so that I can function tomorrow. And so I was sat in the cold water that day thinking, what did I do? Again, it's that self-talk.
Yep. Yeah.
I was battling. This side was saying, you can't do this. Who do you think you are? That is I bet you we have the audience members are like, yep. Who do you think you are, Tisha, to think that you can run a half marathon or even a 5K? And then the other side of me was like, no, I can do anything. Nothing is impossible. I'm doing this for Jace, right? And so it was that battle. Well, that was in December. I know it's unbelievable. By March, I was able to run 10 miles without stopping.
That's amazing. Wow.
The achievement, Elle, was not in the half marathon. The achievement for me was in the fact that I could run 10 miles without stopping.
Yeah.
And that was a week before the marathon ever happened. Now, was I super sore after the marathon? And did I experience some sort of crazy feelings in my body while I was running 13 miles? Yes. Did I injure myself in the race? Yes. Did I keep going? Yes. But you know what was the most incredible thing was at the end of the race, there was Super Jace.
Yep.
Not finished with chemo yet, but almost. And I picked him up and we went through the finish line together. And it was because I thought I have to teach my kids. Like, this is the thing I will say as an educator, as a parent, just as a person. My goal is to teach people what's possible. Every day, I want to teach people what's possible. And so that requires me unlearning some things, and it requires me digging deep. It requires me battling that negative voice with the positive. But that is another it was just a small thing. I couldn't even do the block. You hear these stories all the time. And it's because we're all experiencing them just at different times in our lives. I don't know, Elle. I don't know if I'll ever run another half marathon. If I do, I think I'm going to enlist you to train with me this time.
I would be more than happy. That's another thing that is in the book about that kind of accountability partner and finding someone to help you track a habit that you're trying to build or doing that with you. And I think that's key. So if you did want to run a half marathon, I would be more than happy to try and do it with you. I know Michael on the Wakelet team has not long run a half marathon as well, so he could give us some tips perhaps.
Here's what I'm thinking. I'm foreseeing a Wakelet 5K, maybe a Wakelet half marathon event.
Why not?
We could get the ambassadors to come run with us.
That would be amazing. Imagine that all through. Why not do like all over the world? We could fly to loads of different countries.
Wow.
Do that.
I like this. I might run for that. Running for travel. I like this.
I love it because we're all world travelers. We all travel the world.
We are all world travelers.
Definitely. I love that so much. Another question I had for you was, what is a habit that you are trying to build at the moment that you are maybe thinking about when you're reading this book, or perhaps one of the reasons why you picked up the book in the first place? What is something you are working towards?
So for me, it always goes back to fitness because I am my best person when I am working out and being outside. So I've established going outside once a day, and I intentionally do not wear my shoes because I want to ground myself. So weather permitting, I ground myself every day at least once. But it really is getting back into fitness. I kind of stepped away during the pandemic. And so I'm struggling with that. I struggle with that. I struggle with balance. That's probably the thing. I'm really trying to learn how to balance because as a parent, I want us to have fun and I want to give my kids like these fun experiences. And sometimes fun experiences require fun, good food. And fun, good food is not usually good for us. So my new habit that I just decided today that goes along with my fitness habit. I've done fasting before, but I know some of the people on the team will love this. I really try to be more plant-based. And so I've decided to do 21 days of just fruits, vegetables, a very, very, very scaled back diet because I want to see what happens in those 21 days. I've done it before and I felt amazing, and it gives me mental clarity. But also, Elle, I'm about to turn 45, and
I can't believe that at all. I cannot believe that.
I know. It's my favorite thing to just drop that bomb, but it's true. And I had a dream. I think dreams talk to us. And I had a dream last night that I needed to make some health changes because I want to be able to live a very long life. I will live until I'm 95.
You will.
I'm just saying, I'm going to live until I'm 95. And 95 is my favorite number. So anyway, I just want to be able, again, to show people what's possible. So I've been taking some before pictures, and we'll see if I get to a different place, say in May. I think May is my big goal. A couple of Daniel fasts here and there, maybe. Plant-based.
I love that.
Cutting out sugar.
Yes, it's a big one.
That sounds not fun at all. But I'm going to tell you, I feel the best when I have not had sugar in my body.
Yeah. I think that's one of like the key things as well of just in general of thinking of the positives and why you're doing something and sort of allowing yourself to reinforce that.
It's that feedback loop, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's allowing yourself to think, why am I doing this? What's the positive outcomes of that? Why am I not allowing my current self to be completely happy about it? And it's prolonging that sort of hit of happiness and feeling successful.
The hit of happiness. I like that. The hit of happiness. Yes. I'm going to write that on an affirmation.
Yeah, it's just delaying that kind of gratitude. I think there's been quite a lot of studies and I've seen so many videos of this go viral recently of a parent telling their child that if they want to, they can have a marshmallow right now. But if they wait until the parent goes and comes back like 5-10 minutes later, they can have 3. And apparently if a child can delay that sort of gratification and wait until the parent comes back so they can have 3 marshmallows, they're meant to be more successful later in life, which I think is really interesting. And it's something that is so unheard of today. Like you were saying before, you can go on Amazon, you can order something, it arrives next day. And we all do that. We think, I can order food straight to my door now. I can just go to the shops and get what I want. Whereas maybe back in the day or however long ago, you would have had to wait to maybe save up for something or for it to be available in a store or to be on pre-order, something like that. So I think that delayed gratification is so key as well.
It's hard. The delayed gratification is hard in this day and age. And I think that you're right. You've hit on it. Our kids are on social media all the time. And they, like you said, I mean, I don't know if you have DoorDash in the UK.
We have like similar things,
But DoorDash kind of has done me in because I'm like, oh, Elle, we want to have some cookies right now. Let me just have that delivered to our door.
Exactly.
Or let's celebrate the fact that, I don't know, we made it through the first week of school. Oh, we want ice cream? Okay.
Get it delivered. Yeah, completely. Exactly. I think that's maybe one of the key things of why maybe building a habit and sticking to a habit is so difficult now, because anything you want, you can get yesterday, like you don't need to wait for it. And it can be really damaging when you kind of look at the big picture.
True.
But yeah, and I think one of the key things, again, on your whole like fitness and maybe being plant-based or not having as much sugar, and again, it was in the book, you don't have to do it, you get to do it. And that change in mindset was huge. It just clicked for me.
Yes.
So yeah, I thought that was a really nice statement. Exactly.
I get to work out. I also think just because I, have done caretaking for Jace, I'm able to work out. Like there's so many people that aren't able to do that. They're not able to run around the block. And so the fact that I am able, I need to remember that. It goes back to gratitude, being thankful for what you have. And remembering that what you have, some people wish they had.
Wish they had,
we can
definitely.
remember that.
Yeah, I completely agree. There was quite a few exercises in the book. Like one of them was like a scorecard where you wrote down everything that you do in a day and you score it on whether it's helping work towards a goal or if it's hindering a goal. Did you do any of the activities throughout?
I haven't done the activities, but I will tell you, and I'm recording on my phone, so I can't show you, but I have an app. I'll send you for the show notes. I have an app that is a habit tracker.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can put the habits that, okay, for example, drinking water. I do keep a fitness tracker and a food tracker. And for me, see, that works for me. That doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody can do that. But for Tisha Poncio, she's got to be accountable to what she's eating and how much water she's drinking. So I have a habit tracker, and that keeps track of my workouts, my water intake, and then I have something separate for food. But when you can see it, I'm a visual person, so I'd like to see that, whether it is something that you stick on your wall and you cross off, or it's something on your phone. I also, Elle, I don't know if you know this, but I use automations on our phones. I think that's what that's called. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah, completely.
And so, like, if I plug in my phone, the phone talks to me and says charging. But I have it set for certain times of the day, and it will say an affirmation to me, or it will play a song, or I even have it say some affirmations while I'm sleeping, because we study the subconscious mind.
Yeah, that's
what our subconscious believes is what we believe.
Is what we believe. That's fantastic. That's such a brilliant idea. I absolutely love that. And that really nicely links on to my next question of do you have these habit trackers, and what do you use to kind of keep accountable? And I know you kind of touched on it there, and I'm actually completely different. I mean, I'm on my phone all the time, I'm always on my laptop, but writing things down for me and physically tracking it, I find is better for me, and I stick to things better.
Do you use a dot journal? Do you have one of those?
See, that's the thing. I used to have like a bullet journal, and I used to use that to track things. But again, it just wasn't working for me. And I think that's what kind of life is about. It's just working out what you can and can't do, or what you do and don't like. So I just have a very bog standard kind of lined journal that I put absolutely everything in. And I just go through and write what I did each day, or what I need to do each day, and ticking it off. Making to-do lists, making these habit trackers, and it just works for me. I don't know what it is. It's that maybe tactile thing, like you were saying with making your bed. It's just that momentum, and you get it going. So
and that's really what helps. I do. I have a journal. I think in my journal, I try to write in that every night, and it's just not even complete sentences. Just maybe how I felt that day, what I need to work on. It really, there's no rhyme or reason to it, but I love that I can go back and see where I was. Because when you go back and see where you were, you also see how far you've come.
Yes, I love that. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that, like I said, it's just understanding what works for you and what doesn't, and just keep trialing things until you do find something that sticks. I mean, I've wrote so many notes when I was first reading this book, and I've circled habit tracker. But one of the kind of key learnings around that was to make it easy and to make it satisfying. So you need to do something that you can do easily. Like, you don't need to, I don't know, run before you do it, or go and get something, or have a special pen or something like that makes it more difficult. And then make it satisfying as well. I think that physical tick, or maybe on your app, if you get like a nice notification or a sound or something like that, it makes you want to complete things.
Yes. Absolutely. No, I've done the habit tracker. I've done the dot journals, the bullet journals. Like, I tried that. It also didn't work for me. I think it goes back to what I always say. There is a way, not the way. And that really applies to everything. And like you said, it's trial and error. What is going to work for me isn't going to work for you. What works for you won't work for me. That's all okay. We're all individual. We have to figure out what gets us to that next goal, right? I mean, so.
Yeah, I love that. And what would you say is maybe your favourite quote from the book? I know you were saying before, page 36 holds a very special place for you. But yeah, what is your favourite quote from the book, and why is it that stuck with you?
I'm trying to remember what I told you on page 36. Yes. I have to go back to that. I'm going to come back to page 36 because I wrote wow a couple of times. And here's another one on page 33.
Mhm.
You have a new goal and a new plan, but you haven't changed who you are. When we create habits,
Mhm.
when we change things in our lives,
Mhm.
we unknowingly and naturally change who we are. So that's kind of like people will say, well, you've changed. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I hope so.
didn't, yeah, exactly. Like, yes, I changed, and that is the goal. We're all supposed to change. And sometimes those changes, right, don't benefit other people because we're different, right? We think differently. But I also want to go back to page 33. I can't let that go because I think it is powerful. I think it's powerful for our educators. I think it's powerful. Was it 33 or 36?
It may
Now
have
I'm
been
looking. 36.
Yeah, 36.
Well, shoot, I don't remember. There's so much. Okay, but I'm going to go back to this. Progress requires unlearning. That's going to be my overall quote for this entire book. Progress requires unlearning. And that is something that I have learned over the past 18 months. I had to unlearn a lot of things. A lot of things. And I think when we're unlearning, that's probably the most powerful thing in our lives, is to unlearn beliefs, past beliefs, beliefs that were implemented in our childhood, root beliefs. We have to adapt our core beliefs. I think that should constantly be changing. And I think that's why I like this book. Because, and I'm not finished with it yet, but I do think that's why it's powerful, because when we unlearn, we're also breaking bad habits, because our bad habits kind of correlate to what our beliefs were before, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely.
I just have to go. I think I need a shirt with that. What was it? Progress. There. What was it? Now, see, I
keep losing it. I've written it down so many times. Progress requires unlearning.
Unlearning. Yes. I think I need a t-shirt. Progress requires unlearning. Again, I think that is for parenting. I don't parent in 2021 the same way that I did in 2000. I'm not the same teacher in 2021 that I was in 2000. It required me to unlearning. But when we ask people to unlearn, I think you have to let go of control.
Yeah.
And we're back on this loop again, right? Of control.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really, really powerful quote. And there were so many throughout that, like you, I've kind of highlighted and underlined and added tabs to and written down. And it's because so many things throughout the book spoke to me. One of my favorite ones was with a big enough why, you can overcome any how. And I really loved that. I thought if you really, really want something or believe in something, you can do it. Action over motion, I thought was brilliant, because it's more than just saying I'm going to do something. You actually need to action it and take steps to actually accomplish something. Don't just say, I want to work out. You have to do it.
Yes. I am going to go back to the guy that showed up at the gym. Like, I'm never going to forget that, because he just showed up. He didn't do anything. Yeah. He just showed up. But if you keep doing that, you're creating a habit. And your brain is like, oh, we're at the gym.
Exactly. I completely agree. And then the final one that, again, really stuck with me was winners and losers have the same goal. I mean, everybody that goes to the Olympics wants to get a gold medal, but it's only people that do put the reps in, put the work in, show up consistently, that will walk away with that gold medal. I thought that was really, really powerful.
I love it. Oh, that's so incredible. You're right. Winners and losers all going towards the same goal.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, my final question for you today is, although you are currently reading Atomic Habits and you haven't quite finished it yet, is there anything that you are reading alongside that? Anything up next that you'd like to share?
I read so much. I have to list them. I will list them all, but I am reading The Mountain is in You. This is transforming self-sabotage into self-mastery, kind of the same type of theme as Atomic Habits. I'm also reading Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, who is Pixar. So if you don't know the Pixar story, yes, you want to read that. I am also reading, I think it's called You Are a Badass. I can't remember if that's the name of it. I'll have to look it up. I'm reading that one. And then there's one more, magic, something about magic. And they all are very similar. They're in this similar category where it's step out, take a risk, build a new habit, unlearn your things. You're more powerful than you even know. You can do impossible things.
Yes.
We can do impossible things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
And when we do it, they're not impossible anymore.
Exactly.
So
yeah, I love that so much. Yeah, I mean, I love that they're sort of in the same vein as Atomic Habits. I think reading that kind of real sort of maybe self-help is maybe a good word for it. It's such a good way to develop and to learn. And similar to what I said on the previous episode of the Book Club podcast, reading is the quickest way to learn things because you get so much information in a really bite-sized, easy to digest form, and you're hearing an entire perspective from somebody else. I think it's one of the most wonderful things.
I was told something probably 10 years ago, and I've kind of held on to it, and this is how I taught my students, but leaders are readers, and readers are leaders. Yes. And we should constantly be reading. Again, if it's only one page a day, right? Some days, my days are just busy, and I will just say, you know what? I only have to read one page, and I will read the one page, and I will take a note, and I will let it go. And that is me giving myself grace. So I think if we do that, you know, maybe you just want to run around the block, just one block, and then let it go. Then do another block tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
Little by little. That's another thing that I heard. Little by little, step by step, eventually you reach the top of the mountain.
You definitely do. Yeah, I love that. That's so true, so powerful. And it goes back to what we were talking about before of that 1% change, and it just compounds over time.
Yes. Imagine. We're going to change the world, Elle, 1% at a time.
Yes, I love that. What a perfect way to end. Thank you so much, Tish, for making the time to speak to me and for sharing your insights and all your wisdom surrounding habits and building habits and keeping them and sticking to them, and just doing things, doing everything you want to do one step at a time, or 1% at a time, I should say. But yes, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we not only read this book, but happened to read it at the same time as well, so we can actually speak about it. And I just think that having these discussions, you've picked up on things that maybe I didn't even notice, perhaps I did that you didn't notice. And it's that kind of stuff that makes these episodes my favorite, to be completely honest, because you're hearing an entire other person's perspective. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Elle. Now I just want to know what's next on our book reading list. I think we should create our new book club. We're going to have a book club. You're going to be like Oprah. You get to pick the book of the month.
Well, I mean, if people haven't read Atomic Habits just yet, I would definitely recommend starting that.
And again, I'm reading like 5 books simultaneously, so I'm not finished with any of them, but they all play off of each other. So take the risk, do what you love, right?
Completely agree. Yep. So if anybody wants to be involved, you're welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. If anyone wants to be involved in the next book club, we will go for Creativity Inc. By Ed Catmull and Amy Wallace, I believe. So that'll be our next one. So I'm looking forward to it already. But thank you again, Tish. All of the resources that we've spoken about in this podcast will be available in the episode collection. And that can be found at wakelet.com/@the-Wakelet-podcast. Let us know what you thought of this episode. If you've got any tips for building habits or breaking habits, what habits are you trying to build? Let us know. Tweet us on social media or at us on Instagram. Use the hashtag the Wakelet Podcast. And I'm sure we will pick it up and see it. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much again, Tish. And we'll see everyone in the next one.
See you next time. Bye.